Hello everyone, it is Jazz here. Welcome to part 2 of my October reading wrap-up. I have left the link to part 1 in the description, which was all about the graphic novels that I read in October. For today, we're talking about the non-graphic novel books that I read. I read 4 of those fabulous things, and also we're going to talk about my November to be read. So let's jump into all that fun stuff. I loved everything that I read in October, pretty much. I'll still tell you my thoughts on them, but just know that I loved flipping everything. I made some good choices, I guess. First up, we're going to talk about Night Film by Marisha Pessl. So in Night Film, the daughter of a well-known sort of horror filmmaker, Cordova, is found dead. And Scott McGrath, who is sort of a freelance reporter, is kind of suspicious of her death just because he's had past dealings with Cordova, and he decides to investigate this case along with a couple of other kind of unlikely characters. And that's all I want to say about this, because the less you know about Night Film, the better Night Film is. This book is pretty highly recommended on BookTube, so I did suspect that I would probably like it just because of the premise and because it was so highly recommended. I did not expect that I would love this book as much as I ended up loving it. It does take you on a big ride, and I also enjoyed just the general writing style of this. I really like a good simile and metaphor, and the author definitely utilizes that. The story in general is just pretty visual because it includes some of this mixed media element, which is just news articles and also internet searches and different things like that, which really makes the book feel kind of like a film because you're kind of getting a visual thing along with the writing element of it. I believe there are actual video things that you can look up with this. I didn't actually do that while reading it, but when I got to the back of the book, I found that out. So I think that would have been a really cool element. Maybe if I reread this, I will definitely look up that stuff. I highly enjoyed the fact that this book was pretty unpredictable for me. A lot of times, thrillers and psychological thrillers, I'm pretty good at guessing what's going to happen next, and then I'm like, ah, dang it, I spoiled my own self. This book, I did not or could not do that. I was totally going, what the heck is happening? It really plays on the minds of the characters and your mind, and you're not sure what theories are real or what the heck is going on. I unexpectedly fell in love with the main character group. Not only did I love the characters as characters, but I love discovering like their flaws and their quirks and their intriguing backstories and all those things. I could tell that the author put a lot of thought into the character development as well as just really intricately plotting out the stories. I really did end up really enjoying Night Film. I'm so glad that I picked it up and read it. Thank you, BookTube, for recommending this. So I gave this one 5 stars. Next, I completed A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. This is about a 13-year-old boy who is kind of going through a trial and tribulation in his life, and one evening he gets an unexpected visit from a tree kind of monstery thing. I feel like the enjoyment of this book also kind of draws from knowing as little as possible about it. And Monster Calls is yet another book that I read in October that is also really popular on BookTube and highly recommended, and I thought, yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I think I would really like that. Ended up flipping loving it. This, first of all, has some really cool visual elements. It has just wonderful little artwork, and some of them are weaved throughout the margins, and it really does add something cool to the story. But the story itself is just really cool and heartfelt and lovely, and it made me cry like so hard. I was told ahead of time that it would make me cry, but I was not prepared for the dialogue and the way the story was laid out. So it made me cry more than I thought it would. And I think it's such a cool approach to a monster story that the monster is not necessarily what you think the monster is or how you normally would interpret a monster. The writing style is wonderful. It also includes kind of like this power of story and that sort of theme that stories can be really powerful, and the way that element was used in the story was just flawless. So this thing is flipping brilliant. It deserves every accolade that it has gotten so far and every recommendation. And if you're in the mood for an emotional monster read, you definitely need to check out A Monster Calls, because it was so flipping good. Okay, guess what? 5 stars. Then I ended up rereading Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King. This is really kind of simple in concept. It is about a werewolf that is attacking this small town, and it goes through each month of the year and what is going on with the werewolf's attacks during each of those months, and they're kind of like just short chapters for each month. So first of all, if you've watched any video where I've talked about this book before, please ignore everything that I have said about this book, because within my reread, I realized that it was mixing up the plot of this book with the plot of the movie adaptation Silver Bullet, and they're not exactly the same. That is why you need to reread things sometimes. I really do feel like I need to say that I kind of prefer some elements of the movie adaptation. The movie adaptation really does kind of carry through more of a brother, sister, sibling relationship that develops throughout the plot, and the book does not really do that. It kind of touches on what a brother, sister relationship is kind of later in the story, but it doesn't really get involved in it like the movie does. And when I read the book, I kind of miss that element. But that doesn't mean that I don't really love this book. I think it is the perfect book to read around Halloween time if you want something short and quick to read. I think it's a really good book to really get into Stephen King with, because it's not one of his long books, and it kind of shows how he approaches characters, even like the really small characters, and how he like quickly can give you the idea of what a person in his stories is about, what their thought process is, how they live their lives. But he doesn't even have to like tell a lot. He can just kind of show, and I think he's really good at show and not tell in this book in particular, because they are short, just little tidbits about what happens each month with a werewolf. Apparently I was really into books with mixed media, because this book also features quite a bit of artwork. There are some full colored pages of art and also some pencil drawings that are in the margins. I'll be forewarned that some of these pictures are kind of graphic and occasionally bloody. So if that is not for you, maybe don't look at the pictures if you read this, or maybe this book might not be for you in general. But it is a really interesting element to the story, and I think it adds to the storytelling of the story. The only thing that kind of bugs me about it is that sometimes the picture that is like the full color page will come before the actual event, and it's kind of a spoiler if you've never read the book before. I think they could have placed the pictures like a little differently. Definitely love this in terms of the way it's approached and the way it's structured, but I do kind of wish secretly that there was more of that brother-sister relationship that I really like in the movie. So I decided to give this one 4.75 stars because it's like, I'm not going to dock like a ton for the fact that this was just kind of meant to be a short anecdotal kind of story, but I do feel like I love this less than I love the movie, but I still love it. You know what I mean? Apparently my October reading approach was to read adult book, youth book, adult book, youth book, because next up we have the fabulous children's novel Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of NIMH by Robert C. O'Brien. This book is about a widowed mouse named Mrs. Frisby and her 4 young children. They live on a farm. The farmer is going to plow, and usually when that happens after the winter, Mrs. Frisby and her children move house to a new location, so they obviously won't get plowed along with the rest of the field. But unfortunately, one of her children gets ill with pneumonia, and so they can't move. So she has to figure out through a variety of adventures how to save her family, and she ends up getting involved with the Rats of NIMH, who, because of their very interesting backstory, have some very interesting, unexpected abilities. This book has been sitting on my shelf for like as long as I can remember, and I was like, I need to get to that because that seems like it's gonna be the bomb, and I was not disappointed. Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of NIMH is like the bomb. First of all, it is a really cool mixture of adventure and also some science fiction, which I did not expect, and that is just an extra element of cool. Add on to the fact that this includes mice and rats and occasionally birds that talk and work together, and yeah, I am all about animals working together for a cause and talking and just being generally smart and awesome. This is also like kind of deep and analytical and included a lot of thoughts about society, even though it's like a kid's book, and I think that was such a cool element to the story and made you really think as an adult, which makes it to me something that could appeal to any age that reads this, even though it is directed towards children. But there were definitely things where I thought, that is deep, man. Did listen to this in audiobook, really did enjoy it in audiobook. I think it was really well suited for that. The reader read it really well, and also it's just fun to have children's books read to you sometimes because you just kind of feel like my inner child is enjoying being read to. If you do also go the audiobook route, I do suggest that you occasionally pick up the book and look at it because it does have some cool illustrations inside. I flipping adored this book. For sure, I gave it 5 stars, and also I believe it is part of a series, and I would definitely check out the following books in the series. I have 4 books on my November to be read. 3 of those are ones that I have already started. I just really want to make sure that I finish them in the month of November, and then one is one that is pretty short that I want to start. I just really want to focus on working on completing The Three Musketeers. I've been reading it for several months, and I think because I only have about 200 more pages that I definitely could get this done. I have also switched to listening to this in majority on audiobook, so that should help me. After I finish The Three Musketeers, I'm going to really put my focus on completing the audiobook of In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. About 128 pages into this, so I think that I have made a really good start. So once I really focus on getting that audiobook complete, I think I should get through it in a snap. And surprisingly, even though it's true crime, the audiobook is not disturbing me as much as I thought it would. I'm already to almost page 60 in To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. This is a reread for me. I'm really excited to complete this. I'm going to try to finish this up in the month of November as well. The one that I do want to start and hopefully finish is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the very first book in the series. It's fairly short, so I'm thinking that I could probably just breeze through that in a weekend at some point in the month and get that one done. And then if I do that, I will have read 4 books on my yearly reading list, which would make me super happy. I want to at least complete 8 more books on that list. So if I read 4 this month and then 4 next month, I will, be meeting that little goal. That was my October wrap up as well as my November to be read. I have left the links to all the books that I read in October in my affiliate links in the description below. So definitely check that out if any of these books seem interesting to you. If you've read any of these books that I completed in October, let me know what you thought of them in the comments, and we can have a little discussion, if you will. That is it for today. I will see you all on Thursday. Thank you for watching, fabulous peeps. Bye!